We are at that time of year where we talk about perhaps indulging too much, be it maybe alcohol, food. What about money though? Spending too much. How can you avoid a Christmas financial hangover? Leigh Smith joining us from What If Advice. Leigh, welcome to Ausbiz. Good to catch up with you. Look, it is a period of indulgence, isn't it? And that can extend to our finances. What do you need to be mindful of?
Yeah, obviously we're in a bit of a cost of living crisis at the moment, so there is less money that we've got on a discretionary basis to spend. But I think there's some important things that people need to sort of be mindful of when at this time of year. So probably the biggest thing that we obviously do recommend to clients is actually set a budget for what you're going to spend around this time of year. It's really important that you don't sort of overspend and that sort of then carries on into the new year. So using credit cards or these buy now, pay later services where you might be paying for this time of year, sort of weeks, if not months, sort of down the track. So it's really important to sort of stick to your budget and really just allocate what you're going to spend at this time of year, and in particular for people that are really important. Obviously, people do have large families as well. So really allocate your money to the people that are really important to you and don't overspend at this time of year.
Yeah, don't overspend. I guess that is easier said than done. What if you do? Obviously, you want to, give gifts, particularly to your family. If you've got kids, it's very important. But understanding, as you say, many people suffering from cost of living pressures. I mean, do you put it on credit? Do you max out the card and then deal with that later? Or is that a bad strategy?
No, I don't think that's a good strategy. I think that you probably should, even speak to people who you may be buying gifts for and say, hey, look, maybe I'm not going to buy gifts for you this year, and just allocate your reasons why. I don't think that you should be wasting your money on unnecessary gifts, because we do spend a lot of money on gifts and people, within a couple of days forget what you've actually even bought them. So maybe just being upfront with people around, maybe I'm not going to be buying your gifts this year, and for whatever reasons, whether it's cost of living or whatever, and just really allocate that money to people that are in your close network and immediate family.
What about leaning on or turning to payday lenders or buy now, pay later? What are the risks?
Yeah, the risk that this just keeps going. You sort of get caught in this trap and this cycle that you're relying on credit to fund your sort of everyday expenses. So when do you put a stop to that? So it can get in a vicious cycle that if you are relying on credit cards or payday lenders, that this is just going to keep continuing. So we think that it's really important that you sit down and actually allocate, or sit down and do a budget and work out what your expenses going to be for the year, and actually allocate an amount for this time of year so that you're not going to be sort of, overspending or relying on credit cards and payday lenders kind of thing.
Now, Leigh, as we well know, those interest rates remaining at elevated levels, still no sign from the Reserve Bank that they're going to be easing anytime soon. What are you seeing in your business? Are those stress levels rising? Are people finding it more and more difficult to maintain those debt levels?
Yeah, it obviously does stem back to property prices as well. Property's been a huge burden on the family household, which, if we didn't have such high property prices, we wouldn't be having these pressures. But at the end of the day, people have got to live within their means. It's obviously easier said than done, but you need to cut back where you need to cut back on. So if that means that you don't go on a particular holiday, or maybe instead of a holiday every year, you might be doing one every 2 years. You've got to actually live within your means to be able to support a lifestyle that is sustainable.
So I dare say, Leigh, your advice would be to get advice. How best to actually find the right advice then?
Yeah, good question. I've done some rough numbers here. There's probably one advisor for every sort of 1,300 adults in Australia. So we've got about 15,500 advisors here in Australia. So it's not a lot. But probably there's obviously a number of ways to search for a financial advisor. So obviously speak to friends, colleagues, professionals such as accountants, if you've got an accountant or mortgage brokers, that kind of thing, and find it through a referral. That's probably the easiest way. Obviously, the next steps is that if you can't find one through that measure online, through obviously Google being the main one, And these days too, there's actually a lot of advisors who are starting to put a lot of content out on social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, that kind of thing. So that way you can gauge what kind of advice that advisor may be providing, and getting to sort of know the advisor even before you've actually got to meet them.